Are you ready for reaction time? What's up, fam? Welcome back to another one. Hey, we got a game, y'all, that I've been waiting to play. Final Fantasy 16. We got a preview. I can't wait to play this in June. It looks dope. It's my type of game. I love Final Fantasy. Let's get into it. Like, come subscribe. Road to 1K, baby. Let's get it. Let's go. Let's see what's up.
For more than a decade, Final Fantasy has been gradually shedding parts of its turn-based RPG roots and embracing a more action-oriented direction. It was only a matter of time before that focus on action took precedence over the role-playing elements, and it appears that Final Fantasy 16 is finally the moment the ratio has flipped. As a longtime fan of the traditional Final Fantasy games, I wasn't quite sure what to think of this development. The turn-based classics are still some of my favorite gaming experiences of all time, but after an extensive hands-on with the game, I've come around on this direction for the series, or at least this entry in it. If Final Fantasy is an action franchise now, at least it's shaping up to be a damn good one. This isn't to say the game lacks fantastical elements like mythical beasts and magic spells, but those are used to complement the story and action rather than as a layer of menu abstraction. In the fictional high fantasy world of Valisthea, an extremely small number of mortals are innately gifted as dominants, hosts for supernatural icons, which longtime Final Fantasy fans will recognize as summoned creatures. Icons are essentially weapons of mass destruction, and the various nation states use their icons as symbols of their power and culture. The dominants are respected, feared, and sometimes even exploited by their respective nations, as the implied threat of the icons keeps other nations in check. The protagonist Clive's brother, Joshua, was given a place of honor as the dominant of Phoenix, the aspect of fire. Clive's journey is one of revenge, as an attack from an invading army and a mysterious previously unseen icon left his younger brother dead. My play session took place when Clive was in his 20s, obsessed with vengeance and throwing his lot in with revolutionaries who are looking to overthrow the social order. This segment of the story tightly focused on just 3 major characters, which helped illustrate how the political and magical machinations play out amid the interpersonal relationships. Clive was accompanied by Cidolfus Talaman, this game's Cid, another Final Fantasy mainstay, who is both a freedom fighter for magical refugees and the dominant of Rama, the aspect of lightning. Their mission brought them to a castle guarded by Benedicta Harmon, the dormant of Garuda, aspect of wind, and apparently Cid's old flame. Clive was also accompanied by his loyal and very good boy dog, Torgal, who acts as a consistent companion character in battle.
That's so dope.
If it seems like I'm focusing heavily on the story, it's because I find that aspect interesting right from the start. The best Final Fantasy stories use fantastical elements to say something about the human condition, and nation states, having entered an uneasy Cold War as each of them harbor their own personal living, breathing WMDs is a fascinating hook that feels relatable to real-life conflicts. The fact that some nations worship their dominance and others imprison them as living weapons speaks to the breadth of how we treat things we don't understand. On top of that, these superpowered beings have their own human lives and relationships, which adds yet another wrinkle to every interaction. It's the interplay of all these disparate elements that stands out the most and made me care about the characters as I explored. An engaging story wouldn't amount to much without a strong battle system to back it up, and on that front, I was more skeptical. In Final Fantasy 16, you control one character, Clive Rosefield, and the entire story revolves around his perspective as he matures over the course of decades. The singular focus on Clive as the sole protagonist, sometimes but not always flanked by AI-controlled companion characters, seemed to indicate a de-emphasis on juggling commands from party members with disparate skill sets, which is part of the joy of a traditional Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy XVI replaces this level of strategic intensity with a battle system that feels naturally action-based, but with the underpinnings of choice. As Clive proceeds through the story, he picks up abilities from the different icons he encounters. This doesn't make him their dominant, but it does mean that his fighting style will be imbued with magical flourishes that embody their unique traits. For the demo, he had blessings of Phoenix, Fire, Garuda, Wind, and Titan, Earth. You can swap between these on the fly and use their unique spell abilities to complement your array of melee attacks. Phoenix, for example, is particularly agile and able to close gaps, while Garuda is better for air juggles and reaching out with its harpy-like claws to grab enemies from afar. Titan feels very different from both of these, with heavy attacks that often require a brief charge to deliver their full impact. The combat system not only allows but demands that you sweep between these abilities, since each of them has its own cooldown that will be in various states of recharging while you swap to another. But the cooldowns were generous. You're clearly intended to use the full suite of moves quickly and to swap between them constantly. At first, I found swapping between these disorienting, especially when I would tap a Titan ability, having forgotten it requires a charged button hold instead. But after only a couple of hours, it felt much more natural, and I could see room for a great deal of flexibility in the system. Each of the icon abilities, along with Clive's standard melee attacks, has its own upgrade trait. I explored the tree and upgraded a few moves, unlocking new combat abilities and enhancing the strength of some of my favorite moves. Choosing which icons to equip and how to upgrade them looks as if it will provide ample strategic decision making in the moments between battles. If anything, I was spoiled for choice, as the upgrade options looked like equally exciting and fun ways to mix up my arsenal of moves. These choices then pay off with white-knuckled combat when you're in the thick of a fight. Square Enix boasts that it brought on Devil May Cry veteran Ryota Suzuki as its battle designer, and the moment-to-moment melee combat mixed with magical ranged abilities certainly felt reminiscent of Dante and Nero. The game that most came to mind when I played, though, was another action franchise, God of War. Wow. That's because the melee battles are punctuated by icon battles, uniquely built action set pieces that feel markedly different than the standard battles and are particularly exciting. While traversing the castle, I came face to face with Benedicta, an enjoyably scenery-chewing antagonist with dramatic flair. Benedicta first called on the aspect of Garuda to a limited degree, turning into a superpowered demi-human version of herself with wings. Cid met her in kind, half transforming into Rama, resulting in a clash of superpowered beings that still looked roughly like their human characters, and still acting with their own human motivations. The ensuing battle involved fighting two other harpy-like creatures that she summoned and later referred to as her sisters, and then progressed to fighting her in half-icon form on a tower rooftop. It was a test of skill for all I had learned up to that point, while also tossing in cinematic story elements. One moment, when Toro leaped to my defense, clenched his jaw around Benedicta's neck, was a real fist-pumping moment for me, which isn't a feeling I often associate with this franchise. Her injuring and then tossing my canine pal aside while spitting a curse made me that much more determined to destroy her. Of course, this all led to the real set-piece moment, an icon-on-icon battle between Ifrit and Garuda. Like all icon battles, this was crafted to be its own distinct encounter, pitting Ifrit's ability and brute strength against Garuda's ability to control the battlefield with the wind. And it was an absolute blast, a kaiju battle come to life with all the dramatic underpinnings of the human story that had informed it. The uniqueness of the encounter meant that I was largely learning its mechanics on the fly, but this didn't feel like it was meant to be challenging like the traditional melee combat. Instead, it was made to be a spectacle and something to reward all of the effort leading up to that point. To the extent that this new, more action-heavy focus might put on longtime fans of the series, Square Enix has come up with a pretty ingenious variable difficulty system. Final Fantasy XVI has a story mode, but unlike many games that use that name for an easier difficulty level, it instead simply turns on a couple of helpful assists. These assists are available whether you choose story mode or not, so turning them on simply makes them the default. But it's exactly how these assists are implemented that makes the system so smart. Instead of menu options, the assists are presented as a series of 5 special rings that grant different types of assistance. One of them simplifies combat so that simply pressing one button automatically controls your combos, for example, while another extends the window for a successful dodge. You can equip these rings in your 3 accessory slots, but that means you'll always have more rings than you have space to put them in. You'll have to choose which, if any, to use to make combat easier on you. This also presents an opportunity cost, as each slot taken up by one of the assist rings is one fewer accessory you can use to customize Clive's other abilities. The whole system seems thoughtful and elegant, letting you still feel the thrill of combat while gently nudging you towards removing the training wheels as you get more comfortable. This new focus on action combat does come at a price though. Square Enix has already stated that Final Fantasy XVI doesn't use an open world structure, which may remove some of the expansive scope and awe of the traditional Final Fantasy game. My play session consisted of a fairly straightforward level design with only brief side paths to discover some treasures and then proceed along the main path. The producers noted that the full game has wider spaces, which should provide a sense of exploration, but I didn't experience them for myself. A narrower level structure may just be the nature of this genre shift. As Final Fantasy XVI crosses the threshold into full-fledged action spectacle, some aspects are bound to feel different than RPG fans have grown accustomed to. For this RPG fan though, the change of pace is welcome. Who knows what the future holds for Final Fantasy, but I'm convinced that this is the right direction for this entry in the franchise. I went in as a doubter and came out as a true believer, eager to experience the ride.
Everybody said that. Alright guys, that was dope. Final Fantasy 16 like is living up to it. The menus, the switching, the linear world, the story like it's gonna be dope. That's just a little piece. It's basically tells us we're gonna have different sessions of when he matures over time after his little brother Joshua is killed. An invasion happens on their home, which we see a little glimpse of it in some of the trailers earlier last year or whatever. So I can't wait for this in June. This game's coming out. A lot of great games coming out this year, guys. So gamers, we got it going on. Movie lovers, we got it going on. So I come stride, guys. Appreciate the love and support. Continue to support your boy. Road to 1K, baby. Let's get it. Peace.